Good evening. Today is Tuesday, November 8th, 2022. The time is now 5:33 p.m. This meeting of Georgetown County Council is being called to order. I see that we do have a quorum to move forward. We'll ask Councilman Carolina to give us the invocation and lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance.
Heavenly Father, we are here this day asking for your guidance, wisdom, and support as we begin this meeting. Allow us to engage in meaningful discussion, allow us to grow closer as a group, and nurture the bonds of our communities. Fill us with your grace as we make decisions that will affect the citizens, businesses, the environment, and the future of Georgetown County. Continue to remind us that all we do as stewards over the land is for the greater glory of you in service to humanity in Georgetown County, South Carolina, nationally, and humanity worldwide. Our prayers for peace and brotherhood in America as we exercise our constitutional right in voting on this day. Our prayer is for peace and brotherhood worldwide. We ask of all these things in your name. Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic which stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Councilman Carolina. We'll move forward with the approval of the agenda. There's a request to move report 9A, proclamation number 22-9, forward on the meeting agenda, which will follow our special reports. Is there a motion to approve the agenda with the requested change?
So moved.
Been moved by Councilman Anderson. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Councilman Goggins. Any discussion? All in favor, please raise your hand. Opposed? Motion carries. We move down to our special reports. Our nonprofit spotlight, Paulus Island Child Development Center. We have our presentation by Ms. Marshall.
Good afternoon. We will have a short video to start the presentation. My name is Tara Marshall, and after this video, I will start. Paulus Island Child Development Center is a nonprofit child care center located in the Parkersville section of Paulus Island, South Carolina. We're a community-based program sponsored by the Paulus Island Civic Club. The center offers free and affordable child care to single-parent and lower-income families. Our mission is to provide a safe, loving, and nurturing environment where parents can feel good about leaving their children. Each day, the children enjoy a free healthy breakfast, a hearty lunch, and a tasty snack prepared by staff. We have virtual lesson capabilities so that children can continue to learn if they miss more than 3 consecutive days of school. The center is equipped with top-notch learning and play equipment. Paulus Island Child Development Center houses an early Head Start program. This is a federally funded program that offers free daycare to qualifying parents. Early Head Start provides intensive, comprehensive child development and family support to low-income families of infants and toddlers. The program is open to children from 8 weeks old to 3 years old. Early Head Start provides parents with a unique support system that gives them the tools needed to meet their personal goals. This program assists families with housing, continued education, and financial security. In addition, our EHS program offers diaper and formula assistance to parents who are in need. Pawleys Island Child Care Center is our preschool program. This program provides child care for students 18 months to 4 years old. While the community is continuing to deal with the effects of COVID-19, tuition for our preschool will remain at $80 per week. The tuition is usually a sliding scale based on the family's income. Also due to COVID, application fees have been waived, plus financial assistance or scholarships are available. Every teacher at Pawleys Island Child Development Center has specialized training. In addition, the staff is required to participate in ongoing professional development training every year. We are all CPR and blood-borne pathogen trained. The center has a food program to provide food to our families in need. We would like to begin offering more community-focused projects. Our goal is to help establish healthy, more rounded family structures that in turn help develop healthy, well-rounded children. One plan is to provide parenting counseling for families, as well as credit counseling, investing, couponing, and much more. We want to have a holistic approach to childcare that envelops the whole family and community. This is truly a community-based program that has provided quality childcare service for the last 40+ years. We are proud of what we have done in the past, but it's time to shine that light on the future, and our future is bright. First, thank you for giving me the opportunity to tell you more about this awesome program. Again, I am Tara Marshall. I'm Executive Director with Pawleys Island Child Development Center, located, I like to say, in the heart of Pawleys Island, or the purple building in the heart of Pawleys Island. I hope the video explained a little bit about what we do at Pawleys Island Child Development Center. We all have some connection to families who are struggling with providing child care for our children. The average child care for the month in South Carolina is around $700. And in this area, it's probably running around $900 to $1,000. So let's look at a family who is making, a single mom who is making $15 an hour. That is a struggle. That is a true struggle. And $15 is me being generous because, as we know, a lot of us around here do not make $15 an hour. So combine our regular household bills with what we have to pay in childcare, and childcare is not affordable. So that's what makes Pawleys Island Child Development Center so special, is that we provide a safe, nurturing child care for families who are single parents, who are lower income families, and they can feel safe bringing their children to our center. We work hard to take away the burden for families. We provide structure, we provide a teaching curriculum, we provide social emotional development and support for motor skills and behaviors. Pawleys Island, our vision is not only to foster learning and growth in our students, but also our community. We want to uplift our parents and our caregivers. But we can't do that without the support of our community and the members in our community who participate in our fundraisers, members who donate throughout the year, people who support us when we have important events going on, like with Palmetto Giving Day, sponsored by the Francis B. Burnell Foundation. And to help us keep going with that, I'd like to invite you all to like and share our Facebook page, as well as visit our website, because you get to see, what's going on in the center on a daily basis, and, just learn a little bit more about us. So again, thank you all for allowing me this opportunity to present and show you all a little bit about what goes on at Pawleys Island Child Development Center, and a little bit about what we need as far as raising money for diapers and our food program and our housing program. Thank you so much.
I've got, Mr. Chairman, I've got,
Thank you. Thank you, Ms. Marshall. Any questions or comments for Ms. Marshall?
yes, sir.
Mr. Anderson?
I'm sorry, I was trying to catch you, young lady, before you sat down there. First, I just wanted to say that your video brought back a lot of fine memories for me. And before I'd say anything else, I see a gentleman out here by the name of John Burgess, and I know there's probably another Mr. Norman Reed in the audience. I wish they'd stand up for just a minute. I'd just like to say a few words to the two guys that the three of us built this thing back in 2011, 2012 was at the time we did it. We had a great time doing it, and the good Lord was looking after us. And you need to thank these fellows for what they did. Give them a good hand. Secondly, I would like to ask, when did we open the facility back up?
May 2021.
Good. I was not aware of that, but I'm very happy that that happened. How many children do we have now?
Currently 42.
Thank you so much. Sorry to make you get up again.
Thank you, Ms. Marshall. Thank you for all the services you provide for the families in Georgetown County. We go down to the Employee of the Quarter recognition. Mr. Ackerman.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of council. It is my pleasure tonight to present to you the Employee of the Quarter for the third quarter of 2022, Ms. Karen Warzella. You all probably may not know Karen, but you are very familiar with her work. Karen is a member of our finance team. And so all of those reports and budget documents and financial statements and all of that stuff that you see, Karen has a huge hand in making sure that that stuff is accurate and produced on time, and any other facet that you can come up with. We have a fantastic team, and Karen is a key pivotal member of that team. She was promoted to senior accountant back in 2021. And since that time, she has taken on numerous roles that were never dreamed of being senior accountant roles, part of which is training some new staff members that we put on board. We got a new accountant, a new assistant in the accounting department. She's instrumental in training those folks. But one of the big things she's done is she's taken over as our, for lack of a better term, she's the gatekeeper of our financial and HR system. She had to learn how all the permissions work and all the ins and the outs and getting that stuff done. She serves now as a bridge between the New World financial system and the Treasurer's office system and the system that's over in building and planning and zoning. And she pulls all of that stuff together and wraps it all up. But that's not why she's being nominated. She's being nominated because she consistently awe-inspires the folks around her by going above and beyond. Karen is the type of person that if you go, man, this thing is giving me problems, I just can't figure that out, she won't say anything. She'll just go back and solve your problem and then bring you the answer. You know, our finance director, and this, you know, our finance director unfortunately can't be here tonight. She has a personal situation that she's dealing with, but she nominated her, and one of the examples she used, she was looking at some monstrous report one time here just a little while back and said, you know, something just doesn't seem right. I can't quite put my finger on it, but something doesn't seem right. Well, about 4 hours later, Karen comes back with a spreadsheet she couldn't fit on that board up yonder and says, I found your problem. Here it is. And so that saved Karis like a whole day's worth of work trying to nail that problem down. And she didn't even ask her to do it. It's just something that she does. And she does that for everybody, whether you're in the finance department. Sometimes I call with all my little problems and she'll go, I can fix that for you, no problem. So that's why, going above and beyond, she is the employee of the quarter, and we would like to recognize her tonight with a big round of applause. And Mr. Chairman, if you will indulge us, we'd like to get a photograph. Please, sir.
Sure.
I am a camera breaker. Congratulations.
Thank you. A fine example of the employees of Georgetown County. We move down to the request to name a county facility at the Walkmore Branch Library. I think I see Mr. McInville here.
It is so great to be with you tonight to talk to you about a very special man. His name is John Charles. And John Charles is an artist. And during the depth of the pandemic, when the Walkmore Friends was struggling to raise money for programs and books, this artist spent 4 months of his life and produced approximately 30 portraits of ordinary folk on the Walkmore Neck, ministers, teachers, doctors, you name it, he did it. And he brought those portraits to the Walkmore Library, and the community bid on the portraits and raised upwards of $25,000 to $30,000. And then, by golly, he did it again. The man gave 8 months of his life in beautiful portraits. You can imagine he's doing like 7 at a time, and his wife is like this. And so in any case, we would like to honor him. The Friends of the Walkmore Library especially asked me to come forth to request the County Council permit us to name one of our small meeting rooms after this gentleman and his wife.
Thank you. Any questions from Mr. McInville? Thank you.
I just wanted to say that on behalf of the council and the county, I want to thank Dwight for his great work. I'm sure some of the patronage that we receive at the library as a result of your good stewardship over the library. But in particular, John and Libby Charles, their generosity is certainly to be commended in every way. And it's an extraordinary gift, and it's an example of using one's talent to elicit capital or dollars versus just contributing or writing a check. So again, it's an illustration that we all have ways to contribute, and a great example. So thank you, Dwight, and thank you to the Charles.
Thank you. You've heard the request to name a conference room at the Walkmore Branch Library in honor of John and Libby Charles. Is there a motion?
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion that we do approve the honor and do name the room in favor of John and Libby Charles.
You have a motion to approve from Councilman Goggins. Is there a second?
I'll second that.
Second by Councilman Anderson. Any discussion? All in favor, please raise your hand. Opposed? Motion carries. We move down to the recommendation for the adoption of proclamation number 22-29 in recognition of National Community Foundation Week, November 12th through the 18th. Mr. Akers.
Mr. Chairman, members of council, thank you very much for the opportunity to speak this evening. I have the honor of presenting proclamation number 22-29. Just going to read a couple of quick bullet points about this proclamation. Community Foundation is defined as a grant-making public charity dedicated to improving the lives of people within a defined local geographic area. They are independent public entities that steward resources from various donors to local nonprofits. County Council has seen firsthand over the past year as we have learned more about some of the nonprofits serving our local communities and the tremendous things they do. One of our many local community foundations that has been working for the benefit of our citizens is Waccamaw Community Foundation, has sponsored Proclamation 22-29 in recognition and celebration of November 12th through 18th, National Community Foundations Week. We're asking for your favorable consideration in adopting this proclamation in appreciation and recognition of the tremendous impact they have made on our local communities over the past 23 years.
Thank you, Mr. Akers. Any comments from council? Okay. You've heard the recommendation for the adoption of proclamation number 22-29. Is there a motion?
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion that we approve ordinance number 22.
We have a motion from Councilman Goggins for the adoption of proclamation number 22-29. Is there a second?
A second.
Second by Councilman Newton and Carolina. Is any discussion? All in favor, please raise your hand. Opposed? Motion carries. Is Ms. Sykes, Ms. Ellen Sykes present? Thank you. You come forward for the proclamation, please. We move down to our public comment period. A public comment period is included on each meeting agenda and shall be limited to 30 minutes. Each speaker will be limited to no more than 3 minutes. No speaker may yield his/her allotted time to another speaker. Members of the public who wish to address council during the public input period should sign up with the clerk of council before the meeting is called to order. Please note that at the end of the 3-minute time period, a buzzer will go off, and we ask that you promptly conclude your remarks at that particular time or your comments at that time. Madam Clerk, do we have anyone sign up to speak this evening?
Mr. Chairman, we do have 8 speakers signed up to speak tonight, and as you stated, each will have up to 3 minutes. The first is Jason Rosenberg.
Thank you. Well, today's special for 2, maybe 3 things, but the first is Election Day, and I appreciate the opportunity to vote in this country that we all love. The second is it's my birthday. Thank you. And we'll get to the third. So we can all agree that trees are good for the environment, right? We can all agree that solar is good for the environment. But do these have to contrast each other? Are these mutually exclusive? There should be a way to find a place to put these solar panels that don't interfere with trees. Why are we chopping down trees to put in solar panels? Can we take places like the Inlet Square Mall that are vacant lots and put solar panels on vacant lots? Can we put solar panels on top of government buildings that are flat buildings? So, solar panels can fit anywhere. Why are we getting rid of trees? If trees are important, or if it's not important for trees, by the way, trees work 100% of the time. Solar panels in South Carolina work 22% of the time. So not as efficient as trees. But if it's important to get rid of trees, Francis Marion Forest is 259,000 acres. Why don't we take 2,000 acres or 1% of Francis Marion Forest and put solar panels there? It's preposterous. It doesn't make any sense to me. What about taking a place like, let's see, parcel 14.45 acres on the west side of Pettigrew Drive across from this intersection of Commerce Drive, further identified as TMS number ... from commercial to high density residential, put solar panels there. If you want to put solar panels in a place where it's not going to interfere with traffic, it's not going to interfere with neighbors and neighborhoods, it just doesn't make any sense to put it in the forest. I spend a good amount helping the people in Georgetown County. We contribute to charities, Miss Ruby's Kids. We contribute to charities, Helping Hands. I volunteer my free time educating community members. We volunteer, probably one of the larger donors for the schools. I would hate to spend that money on a lawsuit to go against solar panels going in the middle of the forest. It doesn't make any sense. Properties that are abandoned, gas stations that are abandoned on the side of highways, underneath these high power lines, put solar panels there. Look for a different spot for solar panels. I'm not saying solar panels are bad. I'm just saying it's a bad idea to get rid of trees to put down solar panels. That's all I have. Any questions?
Thank you. No question. Thank you.
Thank you.
Gary Weinrich.
My name's Gary Weinrich. I also voted, and it's not my vote. But I do want to share some very interesting things I learned this week. First, I learned that the South Carolina Association of Counties provides detailed training on planning and zoning compliance. I learned that Georgetown County is a member of that association and is apparently paying for individual memberships for all of you on council, for the planning department, for the county administrator, and for the county attorney, among others. I learned that your individual membership gives you ready access to all training materials. And I learned that their 6-hour course that's called Planning and Zoning Orientation is free. And it's certified by the South Carolina Education Advisory Committee, which was created by the legislature and includes certified planners and representatives from Clemson and USC. When you complete the course as I did, you not only receive a certificate you can hang on your wall, but you have a very clear understanding of how planning and zoning must be implemented here in South Carolina. I found 2 short audio clips from the training that accurately capture the essence of the entire program, unlike the one sentence that was cherry-picked 2 weeks ago to guide you in the wrong direction. Let's see what they have to say.
Regulations must follow the comprehensive plan.
Whoa, I don't know if everybody heard that, but it sounds like it's completely different from what we've been hearing.
Zoning ordinance regulations must follow the comprehensive plan.
Whoa, so you go to the next module and pull a clip.
Additionally, all zoning ordinances and amendments must conform to the comprehensive plan.
So I think that's completely different from what we've been hearing. And there's an important zoning amendment on your agenda this evening. The Planning Act and the training are unambiguous about your responsibility. It supports exactly what the citizens of this county have been telling you for years, which is,
Additionally, all zoning ordinances and amendments must conform to the comprehensive plan.
unfortunately, the many years of misinformation has caused the public to lose confidence. When we could not get accurate information from our officials here, we turned to planning experts in 8 neighboring towns and counties. We learned that not one of them agreed with your interpretation. So we now have 8 nearby planning authorities, all the expertise of the South Carolina Association of Counties, and the experts at the Planning Education Advisory Committee, all telling you that your interpretation of the act is just flat wrong. What can we do to correct it? I'll talk about what we can do to correct it at no cost during the hearing. Thank you.
Carrie Salibi.
Thank you for allowing me to speak tonight. My name is Kerry Salibi. I was born and raised in Florence, have visited this area for over 60 years, owned homes here for over 30 years, and am now a permanent resident. After settling in here, I began to understand some of the issues with growth, and so decided to start attending Planning Commission and County Council meetings. Having worked for 42 years at a large international company where business practices, conflicts of interest, and ethical conduct were critical to our license to operate, what I have heard in these meetings is deeply disturbing to me. First, I heard clear conflicts of interest, issues with developers doing their own studies on things like traffic and drainage with no oversight by qualified experts. I would have thought your staff would have brought this to your immediate attention for appropriate action and correction, but then I learned your staff had actually approved these studies ahead of time. As such, I suggest Georgetown County officials and staff need additional training in identifying and handling conflicts of interest. Second, it was clear that your understanding of the law was, at best, unsettled regarding zoning and land use. Despite these serious issues, some public officials voted to approve these projects. In my view, this was a clear violation of their fiduciary responsibility. During one recent meeting, I heard council members and the county attorney quote from a portion of the comprehensive plan. When I read the plan myself, I found much context had been omitted, which significantly changed the meaning. I also heard a council member reference the fact that it's always been done this way. While precedent is clearly a factor to consider, it can also be wrong. Having always done things a particular way does not mean it was right then or appropriate now. What I did not hear was any discussion about the impact these proposed projects would have on the present community, the community that it is your fiduciary responsibility to represent. The lack of discussion of the potential consequences to the surrounding community speaks volumes. In conclusion, business practices should be addressed to assure that work is impartial and done by those technically qualified. Also, your fiduciary responsibility is to do what is in the best interest of the people of Georgetown County, not the company or business requesting the change. You must follow the law, and when the law is not settled, it is wisest to wait. Once built, the damage is done and cannot be corrected, even if found to be illegal. And the current residents in the area who you represent will pay the price. Thank you and good evening.
Connor Eccles.
Good evening, council members, and good evening to our neighbors and members of the community. My name is Connor Eccles, and I serve as a Director of Project Development at Silicon Ranch. Thank you for giving me the opportunity to speak tonight and briefly share more about who we are and our plans to invest in this community. Silicon Ranch is not only the developer, but is also a long-term owner and operator of the proposed solar projects in Georgetown County. I make that distinction because it is important to differentiate in our community the approaches we take in our projects. As a long-term owner and operator of every project that we develop, as opposed to developing projects just to flip them to a third party, Silicon Ranch emphasizes a deep, long-term commitment to the communities where we locate. Silicon Ranch is investing more than $200 million in Georgetown County to fund the installation of a local source of low-cost renewable energy generation on the land that we own. That will help power approximately 40,000 homes per year. To make this possible, no additional capital investment is required by the state, the county, or the utility. The installation of the projects is expected to support more than 400 construction jobs, in addition to the multiplier effect that will benefit local hotels, restaurants, and retailers. In addition to the significant capital investment, the project will contribute a significant increase, more than $15 million over the lifetime of the projects, in tax revenue to support local government services and local schools without requiring government services in exchange. Beyond the capital investment and the tax revenues, Silicon Ranch provides charitable contributions to local causes, such as our recent $10,000 donation towards hurricane relief and supporting local community initiatives. The Lambert projects were awarded by Santee Cooper and Central Electric Power Cooperative through a competitive process and will help keep rates low for utility customers across their service territories, including Georgetown County residents. Silicon Ranch is committed to answering any questions you or the community has about the Lambert projects, as questions have been asked by the community and the county. We provided thorough answers from subject matter experts and will continue to do so. Thank you for your time.
Madam Clerk, before we proceed, will you please put your phone in vibrate mode or turn it off so that it would not disturb the speaker at the podium, please? And so we can actually hear what is being said. Thank you. Please.
Dan Stacy.
Mr. Chair, members of council, I'm here on items 10A and 10B on your agenda. I know we've already had second reading, but if you have questions about it that come up in your discussion, or if there's potential discussions about a development agreement that may come along with this, should it pass, then we'll be available to answer questions should you have them. That's it. Thank you.
Cindy Person.
Good evening. I'm here at this point in time to just make a general comment. I don't have a comment about the MERCOM issue. On behalf of the Parkersville community, I want to address an ongoing issue that has serious negative impact on this minority community. At a September council meeting, Councilman Goggins read one sentence from the introduction of the Georgetown County Comprehensive Plan, which was adopted more than 25 years ago. This is a very helpful and enlightening document that explains the role of the comprehensive plan in zoning and land use decisions. And with all due respect to Mr. Goggins, I would like to read the sentences that follow the one that was quoted for you. And here it is. The comprehensive plan is, quote, a public policy document forming the legal basis for existing and future land use ordinances. In order for local ordinances regulating land use to be valid, they must be adopted in accordance with the comprehensive plan. It continues, and I quote, one of the most important implementation measures is the immediate preparation of revisions to the Georgetown County zoning ordinance. The adoption of the comprehensive plan represents the direction or the blueprint, but the actual governing laws and ordinances must change to reflect the goals and action items within the plan. Once the plan is adopted, the planning staff will immediately commence work on changes to the zoning ordinance. It's a very simple concept. When you build a house, you follow the plan. If you don't follow the plan, you're stuck with a mess. And that's what we're dealing with today. 25 years have gone by, 25 years after this mandate, and we still have zoning ordinances on the books and land use decisions being made that simply do not comply with the comprehensive plan. And a disproportionate number of those are in the African American communities like Parkersville. Whether it's intentional or unintentional, it's wrong, it's unconstitutional, and it has discriminatory impact. This is serious business. We've offered to provide interns and volunteers to help the county bring these into compliance, and we've gotten no response. As council members, you should be able to assume that the information you're being given to make your decisions on is the whole objective truth, not words that are cherry-picked out of context. And for the sake of Parkersville, we hope that those of you who care about doing the right thing will take this into consideration in your future decisions. Thank you very much.
Andy Hollick.
Good evening. I'm Andy Halleck. I've lived here for 18 years. I'm in Pawleys Island. I'm a constituent of Mr. Goggins. I want to talk a little bit about Keep It Green, but I'm going to start off with a comment that actually is about the outcome of tonight's meeting, predictable outcome. We can predict the outcome on the Mercon property. You're going to vote to approve it over a lot of objections that you're going to hear later. So let me take a couple of minutes to talk about Keep It Green. We know there are county employees, and most of the county council regard us as a pain in the neck. We get it. KIG started 4 years ago with people meeting weekly on the second floor of an office building in Pawleys Island. We really didn't know each other. We were united against what we saw as ill-advised development resulting from rezoning. No one then, and continuing to this day, was against responsible development consistent with the goals as stated in the comprehensive plan. For 4 years, we have been researching issues and coming to these meetings to express our thoughts. The 6 KIG people around that table in 2017 has grown to over 3,000 supporters in the Pawleys Island area. In addition, KIG works with such groups as the Pawleys Island Civic Club, Parkersville Planning and Development Alliance, Preserve Murrells Inlet, and the South Carolina Environmental Law Project, as well as others. Even with these efforts, the county continues to rezone projects with little to no support within the community. As was just alluded, the aggressive moves into the historic Parkersville community is a recent example. KIG's efforts to date have been to lobby and present our thoughts at county council meetings. That tactic has been successful to a point. To increase its effectiveness, KIG has recently acquired local resources. These resources are supported by legal experts and other firms across the state. These resources have been made possible through donations from local people. Starting already and in the future, KIG will mount legal challenges to county council decisions it believes are outside the law. KIG continues to grow. We appreciate individuals and communities that have supported us during this time. We are not going away.
Jennifer Hunt.
Good evening. My name is Jennifer Hunt. I'm a resident of Andrews, and I'm on the Georgetown County side of Andrews. And I'm asking these people sitting here, we're not your enemies. We're concerned citizens, and when you make a decision, think of us, our families, our neighbors. I'm in Little Andrews, and I'm asking for police presence. My car has been broken into. A coworker had 2 cars of hers broken into. I have mine on the person who was in my car on video, and we still don't know who it is. There is over 30 break-ins in the last 6 weeks, and I'm asking if someone could help. We don't have much city police for obvious reasons. They don't they don't fill the positions. Could you please, if you don't mind, I don't know all the steps that have to be taken. All I know is we need help. I'm on South Far Avenue. If you could please, I don't know how it works, but we really need some help in Andrews, not just that area, but thank you.
Peter Eisenberg.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Peter Eisenberg, and I live in Pawleys Island. I've lived there for 22 years. I'm also one of the supporters, as we heard about Keep It Green tonight. I'm one of those people. I want to go on record that I'm opposed to the 90 high-density townhouses on Pettigrew next to Mercom. We don't have the infrastructure to support that, and the excess building that will be a result will just cause more problems with drainage and flooding that we already are dealing with. I have to side with the people of the Parkersville community that you need to pay attention to us, not ignore us. I also want to add, there was a very good article by Councilman Bob Anderson in the Coastal Observer last week on the opinion page to talk about maybe turning it over to Habitat to build homes. I think he has a good idea, a good way to use that land. We also heard tonight about the solar panels. That's another good idea that needs to at least be explored in some depth. Thank you very much.
The final speaker.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. And thank you for your comments. There are two matters on the consent agenda that were approved by virtue of the agenda approval process. Procurement number 22-087, replacement of 4 Chevrolet Tahoe PPV pursuit two-wheel drive for the Sheriff's Office, and the adoption of 2023 annual meeting schedule. We'll move down to public hearings. We have a public hearing this evening regarding ordinance number 22-36, an amendment to the comprehensive plan, future land use map, to reclassify a 14.45 acre parcel located on the west side of Pettigrew Drive across from its intersection with Commerce Drive, further identified as TMS number 04-0203-189-02-00, from commercial to high-density residential. Please note that during the public comment session, we noted that we have about 43 persons signed up to speak at this particular public hearing. The public hearing speakers will have 3 minutes to present their particular comments to council. We ask, for the sake of all of you, if some of your comments are duplicated, you can decide whether you desire to continue with that comment or not. It's entirely up to you. Councilman Carolina, you had a statement you wanted to.
Mr. Chairman, because of this matter, I request to be recused from this public hearing.
Please let the record reflect that Councilman Carolina has recused himself from this particular public hearing regarding ordinance number 22-36, and he has exited the dais. Madam Clerk, do we have anyone sign up for public comments, comments during the public hearing?
Yes, sir, we do. And as you stated, each individual will have up to 3 minutes. And the first is Elaine Cooper.
Good evening. I'm one of those Keep It Green people as well. And here we go again, voicing our opposition to the ill-advised rezoning project at Mercom. It's ill-advised as it does not meet the costly yet ignored land use plan for the county. It's ill-advised as it places high-density housing in an area that's proven to be unsuited for it. It's ill-advised as it compromises the historic Parkersville neighborhood. It's ill-advised in that council members who have a vested interest in the development of the property did not recuse themselves previously from voting. It's ill-advised as the lawsuit that will no doubt be forthcoming will cost the citizens of Georgetown County time and money to defend the actions of this council. This project only benefits a single developer who was the only person who spoke in favor of it at the last meeting. Yet the council approved it, despite the many citizens who have spoken against it. And as you said, 43 others after me. And with no discussion by the council to explain their actions, I am here to urge you to follow the unanimous decision of our Planning Commission and deny this rezoning. Do what's right for us, the citizens who you were elected on this election day, I might add, to represent. Thank you.
Gary Weinrich.
So listen to the comments. I just say to myself how sad it is when citizens of Georgetown County who care nothing more than to participate in their county government and see that, you know, the best decisions are made, are viewed as the enemies of Georgetown County. It's just so sad that we can't work together. So in the opening remarks this evening, to summarize, we found out that the decisions that you've been, explanation, whatever, that you've been telling us how planning and zoning is supposed to work has not been correct. And the nearby authorities, the South Carolina Association of Counties, and the Planning Advisory Committee all tell us the same thing. So what can we do to correct this death spiral that we find ourselves in? Well, to me, it's just such a simple solution. Beginning tonight, take a formal pause in making any further planning and zoning decisions until you've taken or retaken the same training that I took last week. Then try to win back public confidence by passing a council resolution stating something that's so simple, but just state that all future planning and zoning decisions in Georgetown County will comply with the Planning Act. Nothing could be simpler than that. So we've defined the problem. We've offered you a reasonable, no-cost solution. Whether you accept it or not is up to you. But like the previous speaker said, the alternative is needlessly spending more and more taxpayers' dollars on out-of-control legal fees. Thank you.
Mary Black.
Council members and Steve Goggins, I've given up asking for you to use common sense. Council members and Steve Goggins, I've given up asking you to use common sense when developing our Parkersville community. We've asked for adequate infrastructure such as drains, storm runoff, larger paved roads, sidewalks, and low-lying side roads to be raised and in place before development begins. You ignore this, and even the counsel of Bob Anderson, your own council member. So now, my neighbors and I, we're changing tactics. We're going to be the record keepers. We're going to start taking pictures as soon as the area is cleared. When the rains come, mud, I hope you're not going to build on mud, but there'll be pictures. Homeowners are going to be able to view these. And when the foundation or walls crack, we want to have people responsible and held responsible for that, if applicable. We're going to have pictures of the entire building process from start to finish. At Deb Lane, she has a 7 to 8 foot alligator that's half a mile from this townhome complex. Homeowners are going to get to see her neighbor that could possibly be their new local resident. A picture really is worth 1,000 words. And Steve, you told us that 30% of the new townhouses at Mercom were going to be affordable housing. That's just not true. 30% will be under market value, which means it's a marketing ploy. If the townhomes are $350,000, then you give the first 30 people incentive to buy at $325,000. And those sidewalks that we've been waiting on, I've been waiting on for many moons, 3+ years. All I can say that, Steve, you leave a legacy of overcrowding, irresponsible growth, poor planning, confusion, frustrating, half-truths, and in my opinion, lies. Please don't follow his lead.
Randy Cavalier.
Good evening. My name is Randy Cavalieri, and as you can clearly hear from my voice, I'm from New York. My husband and I moved here exactly 4 years ago. We didn't simply leave Brooklyn, we ran from it. The congestion, filth, crime, noise, traffic, and rising cost of living, coupled with the decreasing quality of life, are a few of the reasons we left. We've lived through the destruction of the natural environment in the name of progress. We've had our lives negatively impacted by the ridiculous number of multifamily buildings squeezed into the borough in the last 30 years. Gentrification of old, crime-ridden neighborhoods didn't create affordable housing, and it worsened many existing problems. We came to Pawleys Island confident that we found the best area in which to live. But in the few years in which we've been here, we've seen the effects of the migration to this area in newly built homes, and it ain't all Northerners, folks. Sadly, we're heading in the same direction as Brooklyn and the rest of New York City. So now we're part of the fight to maintain the beauty and standard of living of Pawleys Island. I won't reiterate how allowing this zoning request and the irresponsible building of too many homes will affect the environment, the wildlife, traffic, medical care, and other quality of life factors. You know all this already, and some of you council members have chosen to ignore them. It doesn't take a genius to figure out your reasons. You are dissing everyone who lives here by allowing developers to apply for rezoning beyond the limits previously set. You are disrespectful of the residents, especially those who voted for you. You disregard the Planning Commission's recommendations, the land use plan, state and county ordinances. This is unethical. You ignore the consequences of bulldozing the neighborhood in question and building too many homes after you've destroyed the environment. And don't forget, some of you live here too, and you're going to be as adversely affected as the rest of us. You've turned a blind eye to the displacement of the residents, which in my opinion is the worst offense of all. We've seen this happen in Brooklyn. Apparently, you're okay with destroying not just the physical area, but more importantly, the lives of people who have been here for decades. Is it meaningless to you that their ancestry goes back centuries in this historic area? tell me you expect them to leave their history, land, and homes just because there's something in it for you. That's despicable. Shame on you. Shame on those of you who want to see this rezoning approved. You were voted in by constituents who hoped you would act in their best interest, and now you're throwing them under the bus you're driving. How do you live with yourselves knowing that your decisions, attitude, and personal reasons will cause tremendous pain and permanent damage on many levels? Examine your actions and do the right thing.
Please conclude your remarks. We have several other speakers behind you. Please conclude your remarks.
Thank you for the opportunity to speak.
John Burgess.
John Burgess.
Yes, sir.
Thank you, Councilman, for an opportunity to address you tonight. I'm gonna try to be as nice as I can. Vietnam War veteran. I've given blood, sweat, and tears. This country. I'm at my golden age. On my way out. I got children in this area, grandchildren in this area, and great-grandchildren in this area. Come on, people. Come on. Let's do the right thing. That's all we asking. Let's do the right thing.
Greggs. Our next speaker is Deborah Greggs.
Good evening, Georgetown County officials. My name is Deborah M. Greggs. Thank you for allowing me to speak. I live in the Paulus Island, Parkersville area for 63 years and 10 months. I'm pleading to each of you to please refrain from creating any additional retention ponds on Paulus Island. Instead, address the flooding, the traffic, and the ponds in our Parkersville community. It is disheartening that Long Life residents are spending their retirement years dealing with the flooding and alligators issue. If more retention ponds are added, more alligators are coming in our community. We will soon own our own alligator adventure land. This reminded me of my conversation with my councilman, Steve Goggins, on Thursday, August the 12th, 2021 at 12:55, concerning the alligators, my neighbors, on the back of the Hammock Cove. Steve found my complaints and comments to be very humorous, and he replied, "Your story sounds like an alligator adventure story." I told him it isn't funny, My family lives are in danger, and so are the Hammock Cove residents. Some community members and I met with Ms. Holly Richardson twice at the pond. The first one was Wednesday, March the 10th, 2021 at 4:40. Around the pond, we spoke about several issues regarding the pond. I showed Holly how the erosion had affected the area next to my house. She replied, "It will be a while before it reaches your house." Then I replied, "Do you think I want my hard earnings in a pond?" To all of the county council members I spoke with and everyone here, thank you for listening. But please, no more development in the Walkmore Neck on Pawleys Island, and no more ponds. And God bless each of you. Thank you.
Nicole Barksdale.
Happy Groundhog Day. It's been 2 years, and here we are again, discussing the same property. None of us should be here tonight discussing this proposal for 90 townhomes. Your planning commission voted to deny the rezone not once, twice. This fails to follow the comprehensive land use plan. This property is not zoned residential and should have reverted to forest agriculture years ago. This proposal does not adhere to state law or county ordinances. Councilman Newton and Morant should recuse themselves since they serve on the board of the alliance that is requesting this rezone in order to sell the property at a large profit. This is an obvious conflict of interest. It appears that this council does not care about traffic, flooding, the environment, or even the citizens of Parkersville. To quote Mr. Goggins, they care about money in their pockets, increasing tax revenue, and ridding the county of unwanted property. Promises have been made regarding sidewalks and affordable housing. To say we are not too many moons away from sidewalk implementation is not an acceptable answer regarding the construction of sidewalks. Many of these residents don't own a car. They're forced to walk or bike to buy their groceries and to get to work. I have the privilege of knowing and working closely with many families in Parkersville. Many of these folks live a hand-to-mouth existence. November, as you all know, is property tax time. How many of you have gotten that good old property tax bill in the mail this week? Many of us are seeing an increase in the annual bill because the value of our homes is increasing. While that's an inconvenience for some, it's a life-altering event to others. This is gentrification, people. Welcome to gentrification. It will cause these residents to lose their homes. This development, along with the 3 others you approved in this community, will raise their property values and therefore their taxes to a level that they cannot possibly sustain. They have lived here for generations, and many have nowhere else to go. You are targeting a predominantly African-American community and professing to help them to boot. I believe this housing project will make many more people homeless than it will house. Please follow the recommendation of your planning commission and vote no on this rezone.
Norman Reed.
That's a hard act to follow. To the Georgetown County Council, again, I come in front of you to appeal to you to follow the decision that was made by the Planning Commission and vote no on the plan to build more than 190 units of multifamily housing complex in the Parkersville area of Paulus Island. They want to build 90 multifamily units on a 12.66 acre parcel located on the west side of Pettigrew Drive next to Mercon. Beside the building of the 90 multifamily units, they want to have a mixed use of commercial building. If this is allowed, this would be larger than the shopping complex, Hammock Shop shopping complex on Highway 17. Can you imagine what the traffic would be like on Pettigrew? It is bad enough now. About 2 blocks north of Pettigrew on Castaway Drive, there are more than 90 single-family houses there, right there. And there's only one way in and out, and that is off of Pettigrew. Less than 1 block north of Pettigrew, on the east side of Pettigrew, you voted yes to build 53 family townhouse complex. That will be between Pettigrew and Parkerville. Then you give the okay to build a 56 multifamily complex off of Parkerville, north of Martin Luther King Drive, next to Camp Basketball Housing Complex. These 190 units are multi-townhouses within a 1 mile radius in the Parkerville community. I wonder if you would allow this to happen, if you allow something like this to happen in the Plantersville, Choppy, Dunbar, Lanes Creek, Andrews, Sampit, Santee, or North Santee area, or even off of Merritt Road in Georgetown. I appeal to you, Councilman Morant, Councilman Carolina, Council Lady Johnson, and Councilman Newton to join with Councilman Bob Morant and sign no for this passage. Please come to Parkersville community. I invite you all to come to Parkersville community and see for yourself of the round that is being proposed in the Parkersville community. I am also expressing my displeasure of the runaround that have been given to Ms. Deborah Gray, when she tried to talk to different county commission when the management on Castaway Drive dug a pond and filled it full of water and put an alligator in it, because she would not sell her property. I'm gonna make that again. She would not sell her property, which is adjourned to that development. How would you feel if you come home one night and see an alligator in your yard? I don't think you would like that. This is what the people are doing in our neighborhood, trying to frighten you, trying to frighten you one way or the other. If you live on heirs' property, they will try to get your property by talking to an heir that is away from here and sell them and buy their property. So I am appealing to you, vote no, like Council Bob Moran do, Bob Anderson do for this. Thank you very much.
Michael Green.
Hello, my name is Michael Green. I live on Parkersville Road. And not to reiterate what the other people are saying, it's madness what yous are trying to do to us in Pauley's Island. Pettigrew, yous need to take a walk up there. You want to put 96 high-rise townhouses on there? Where's the water going to go? Everybody's taxes are going to go up. Yous are wrong, and you need to stop. We don't need it. Like the lady said, you're killing us all. And all of yous don't belong up there. I rest my case.
John Evans.
Thank you. Again, I've been up here 2 or 3 times again on this project before, fighting for everybody in this room as well. And today it is a poignant day that it is election day, and we know in this climate today how upset everybody is with government and not feeling represented. Everybody in this room who wants to vote no for this, please stand up.
Public outcry. The right thing. Public outcry. Public outcry.
And if we live in a democratic republic where our voted officials are voted for to represent your constituents with overwhelming evidence against the plans that are already in place being ignored, the lack of infrastructure building ahead of development. It's taken you 20 years to pave the road to the dump on Pawleys Island. And that is ridiculous. And now you want to add 10, 20,000 more people to this island over the next 5 years. Is there a plan for a bigger dump? A stoplight at that intersection? Try taking yourself to the dump on a Saturday. It's ridiculous. But back to the point that we're asking you to restore a little of our faith in our government. This room, there's enough evidence to say, let's slow this down. I'm not against development. I'm for it being prepared for. I flood because of Hammock Cove. I had to put $30,000 worth of dirt around my house to prevent it from flooding. That may end up needing to be another $30,000 because you want to finish Pettigrew. I'm at the bottom of the hill where that water goes. Has the watershed study been approved? Have the problems that they found been fixed before you build? That's all we're asking for, is to do this right and not hurt people. But number one, whether you want it or not, because somebody is paying you or not, this room is asking you to represent them. Thank you.
Dick Reese.
Dick Reese, I live in Pawleys Island. As I deliver my comments, I'd like you to reflect on the comments made at the opening of this meeting. Your job is to protect our environment. I'd also ask you to reflect on the services that are provided in this community. Child development services being just one of those services. I'm glad to hear I'm not the only transplant from New York. I come from a town south of Rochester, Pittsford, New York. 20 years ago, they recognized their quality of life, and they made the determination to purchase the development rights of all their cornfields and their soybean fields and their farms to preserve the quality of what they had. That's the only comment I really have to make to this group. They came forward. It was not easy. There was a lot of community discussion whether the town should buy development rights so they would maintain their farms or their open spaces. But they did it, and they did it, and they held together to hold their community and their quality of life. And that's what I think these people are fighting for, their quality of life. Thank you.
Suzanne Samet.
Thank you, and good evening, Mr. Chairman and council members. Yes, my name is Suzanne Smoot, and this is not the first time I have been here before you about the same darn subject. But first, again, I'm going to say this with the utmost respect. What a horrible day to choose a meeting when working people have to choose between their civic duty of voting in the big spectrum, and here we are voting to try and control what's happening in our microcosm of our world, of Pawleys Island. With that, I'm here to say I oppose the MERCOM project with the 90 townhomes. Again, there are transplants here. Yes, I'm one. I'm not from New York. You'd think it, but I'm not. I'm from the West Coast. And let me tell you, I am seeing this council make the same mistakes that destroyed my old state. And I implore to you, please, do you listen to what we are saying? Do you hear not just my voice, my plea, but of these people, my neighbors, this gentleman I have never met before? You know what, sir? My heart goes out to you. I wish I could make your world better. But I'm here to stand next to you to say enough is enough. When do you decide, you know what, twice it's shot down, why do you keep beating this dead horse? Let it go. Enough. We have a great respect in our community of Pawleys Island history and our surrounding areas of Parkersville, every area around us. By you deciding to go ahead and put in 90 townhomes, you're doing a disrespect, not a respect, because you're removing the history. You're removing this gentleman's livelihood from his past. How many other people? Their family history. I drive down Pettigrew, and you know what? I smiled knowing, you know what? Folks here have been here a long time, a lot longer than I have. And you know what? I adore these people. I adore my neighbors, and I'm going to ask you for the final time, please listen to the neighbors, listen to the community, those of us who live here. Enough is enough. Quit selling our blood for somebody else's dollar. Thank you.
Art Murphy. Vincent Davis.
Good evening, Council. Chairman Morant and other city members of the board. My name is Vincent Davis, and I'm the president of the Pawleys Island Civic Club. Our agenda is stated as follows. I'd like to speak directly to Councilman Steve Goggin. Councilman Goggin, I'd like for you to take a walk back with me before you became councilman. You was on the phone with a gentleman who believed in you more than you believed in yourself, because you had reservations whether you could win the seat. But this gentleman stood beside you, and now you sit Councilman Goggin. That gentleman is the late Bill Murray. We know you're about to leave. We know council will always be here. But your measurement of work will determine if you could come back home, look your wife and your 2 kids in the eyes, and said, I did the best I can do with District 6. So while that sits in your soul, I will move the Civic Club's agenda back to the full body. Chairman Morant, County Administrator Angela Christian, this is under your leadership. This is under your watch. Now, we know you had a workshop to brief council on the master water drainage plan. Inside that workshop, it should have told you that Parkersville and Pawleys Island is considered a safe protection area. What does that mean? That means they are prone to high flooding, and they need their own special water drainage plan put in place. Morant, Councilman, Chairman Morant, this is huge for us. It should be huge for you also. They're right, this can destroy a lot of lives. We don't want to categorize you as worried more about the dollar than human lives, because that's where we sit at. We continue passing these developments in our community that we know our drainage is not ready for. So at that point in time, Civic Club rests the rest of their time. Thank you.
Mary Beth Klein.
Good evening. I'm Mary Beth Klein, and I'm here again, asking again, when is enough enough? How much more suffering do you have to hear before you act in support of your constituents? All of that suffering that has been outlined is a direct result of incremental increases in density that Mr. Goggins has brought to this neighborhood, and most of you have approved. Unfortunately, a lot of what Mr. Goggins has called progress for the sake of the community has created an issue that none of us should be proud of. Georgetown County has successfully gentrified the African American community in the lower Waccamaw Neck to less than 3%. And make no mistake about this, Ms. Johnson, Mr. Morant, Mr. Newton, a vote to approve this project is a vote to gentrify this historic and culturally important community out of Pawleys Island. We can't change the sins of the past, but we can do the right thing going forward. What the county has done to this neighborhood is a travesty. You have given them, quite frankly, what rich white neighborhoods would not accept. You have given them a dump, a recycling center, cell tower, a substation, high tension lines, numerous storage facilities, and 5 high-density luxury housing developments that have brought in an incremental 200 residences and 500 cars, all within a square mile of this neighborhood, all of which has only worsened the already dangerous living conditions that people have talked about here today. And now, Mr. Goggins is leading yet another project that will add significantly even more people and even more cars. But this time, he's trying to spin his move to gentrification with a cleverly disguised ruse called affordable housing. There is nothing about this project that is affordable or even workforce housing. It is deliberately misleading, and it is designed, worse, to make you think that you are doing something good for the county when all you are doing is gentrifying this community out of Pawleys. You do have a choice. It's time to stop hiding behind Mr. Goggins and the developers. Explore your moral compass. Listen to the pleas of these families, some of whom have been here for centuries. Do you really want to be responsible for their demise? Protect this neighborhood. Have courage. Do the right thing. Vote no.
Wayne Draper.
Why do I always have to follow Mary Beth? Good job. I'm Dwayne Draper, Chair of Keep It Green. Prior to the last county council meeting, Thomas and Hutton presented their findings of the Waccamaw Neck Stormwater Master Plan. Part of the findings included spending $702,000 to conduct this study. You decided to ignore the findings and approve another 9 3-bedroom townhouses on Pettigrew Drive that will add enough impervious surfaces to significantly impact stormwater runoff. This is in addition to your previous approval of 88 3-bedroom townhouses on Parkersville Road and Pettigrew Drive. These decisions, in light of the science and data before you, are not only shameful, but disrespectful of the residents of this community. How ironic is it tonight that we honored the Pawleys Island Child Development Center in Parkersville? With all of this going on. But why stop at concerns about stormwater issues? Let's also focus on the fact that traffic studies for all 3 of these projects were insufficient at best and deceptive at worst. A total of 178 new 3-bedroom townhouse units, all within a mile of each other, will easily add almost 500 new vehicles to local roadways which are not equipped to handle probably 2,000 plus additional daily trips. Let me visualize that for you. 500 vehicles is almost 1.5 times the number of vehicles in a full Publix parking lot. That's a lot of cars and a lot of daily trips. Do council members truly have empathy with the many pedestrians, bicyclists, and residents of this neighborhood? Is there really a bike path not too many moons down the road? And not to belabor the point, because it is being covered in great detail here tonight, but passing off any of these units as affordable housing is misleading. Nobody, and I mean nobody, believes there will be affordable housing within the development. If you think of the millions of dollars that have been spent on consultant studies, that would have created a lot of affordable housing. A missed opportunity. Thank you.
Beverly Sullivan.
Can you hear me? Is that low enough yet? How about now? Good evening. I'm Beverly Sullivan, and I'm the vice chair of Keep It Green. I have not attended a county council meeting since you left Howard Auditorium, but I felt compelled tonight to ask you face to face how you could totally disregard the people of the Parkersville community, fellow Councilman Bob Anderson, the many speakers who are against the Mercom property development, and your very own appointed Planning Commission members who voted 5-0 to deny. Then I watched the YouTube video over and over and realized that you must have heard the voices of only 2 people, Mr. Goggins and Mr. Stacy, because they uttered words like less than market rate, affordable, workforce, and that sounded really good to you, didn't it? Mr. Goggins went so far as to say that this quote meets the goals of our housing part of our comprehensive plan. We've identified that we need affordable housing, unquote. You know what else it says? It says that if you are fortunate enough to be a worker in this county and you make $48,456 a year, an affordable rent must be below $1,000, including utilities. Do you really think that Mr. Stacy's unnamed client is going to offer rents at $1,000 a month, including utilities, when current market rate for comparable properties begins at $2,100 a month? Mr. Stacy said these rents would remain in place for up to 15 years. Well, up to 15 years could be tomorrow. And who do you think is going to enforce these? A housing authority? No. The Housing Authority is not part of this. This is a private, unnamed developer who just might be part of a real estate investment firm like Graycliff that will sell this property when it's most profitable to do so. Then what? A new owner has no obligation to honor the commitment of a previous owner. Just before the vote, Mr. Goggins said he, quote, empathizes with people who live in this part of Pawleys Island. 30% of the units, quote, will be affordable, and in time, you will see the benefit. Per Mr. Stacy, it will generate $16 million in tax revenue over 30 years. And Mr. Goggins closed by saying that this is an opportunity to, quote, rid ourselves of some debt, put money in our pockets. So can we just be honest here and admit that approval was not based on any benefit to the community, but how much it will benefit the county? Thank you.
Everett Allen.
Good evening. I'm Everett Allen. I live in Pawleys Island, and I've been here, been watching it grow and change since 1956. Tonight, I want to talk about money in the proposed townhouses at Merkel. The last council meeting, I heard Councilman Goggins on several occasions make reference that these townhouses and zoning changes should be approved because they meet the goals of the housing part of the comprehensive plan. At least he's read the comprehensive plan. We've identified that we need affordable housing. Also, later he said, we all know that we need housing that is affordable in the county. I would like to point out that there is no solid commitment before us tonight from the developers to affordable workforce housing. I haven't heard any mention of what these units will rent for. How can City Council vote for a change in zoning on the grounds of providing affordable housing if no one even knows what the rent will be? For the council's information, affordable housing is defined under Section 4 of the South Carolina Priority Investment Act. The act states that in order for a monthly payment to be affordable, you start with 80% of the median income of the area and allocate 30% of that to payments for housing. If we use $48,456 as the reported median income, that formula figures to a monthly housing budget of $969. I'll bet these units will rent for well over $2,000 a month. Not exactly affordable workplace housing. So, Mr. Goggins, it appears that the only way for you to get affordable housing will be for you to get county council to force it. Mr. Stacy stated 30% or 27 of the units would be rented under the market rate for 15 years. Words have meaning. Men have honor and reputations. While I join the community in opposing this project, if the council decides to go forward with it, I believe Mr. Goggins and Mr. Stacy should agree to a stipulation to the zoning change that 30% of these units be rented 10% below the affordable housing rental number of $969 per month for a period of 15 years. The county council include which county office will oversee this stipulation in the future and the penalty and what the penalty will be for a violation, and that this stipulation stays with the units even if the ownership should change. These honorable gentlemen can't come to this agreement. The proposal should be denied, and the zoning should be turned back to forest agriculture.
Yeah.
Heather Kinder.
Good evening. My name is Heather Kinder, resident of Pawleys Island and president of Keep It Green Advocacy. We recently submitted a Freedom of Information Act request to the county for information about this transaction. The response from the county attorney was very clear, that the Alliance is a separate charitable entity from the county, and the county was not obligated to respond to the request. If that is the case, there are some things that don't add up. For example, the webpage for the Alliance lists county employees as contact persons, a county phone number, as well as a county email address. Now, I'm not here today to question the motives of the members of the Alliance. I fully support the goal of bringing jobs and prosperity to county residents. But I do have questions. Either the Alliance stands alone as an independent charity, or it does not. It cannot be both. Here is what we know. We know the Alliance owns this land and that it was purchased with a loan to the Alliance from Santee Cooper. We know this zoning change is being requested by the Alliance through its attorney, Dan Stacy. We know the land is being sold by the Alliance to an undisclosed developer for whom Dan Stacy is also apparently speaking. We know the land sale is for a big profit. We also know that Mr. Morant and Mr. Newton serve on the board of directors of the Alliance. Now, here are our questions. We have reviewed the Alliance tax returns, and this land does not appear to be listed as an asset, nor are the loan payments evidenced anywhere. Who is paying the loan? If the county is paying on behalf of the Alliance, why is that not disclosed in the tax return of a 501c3 charitable organization? Who will get the profit if the sale goes through? If the Alliance is a separate charitable organization from the county, and the county does not control it, why haven't Mr. Morant and Mr. Newton recused themselves? It is unfathomable that they voted as members of the Alliance board to sell this property at a big profit, and now they sit here as council members to vote to approve a zoning change when the Alliance stands to benefit economically. Equally shocking, it appears that the county is paying Mr. Stacy's attorney's fees to request this zoning change on behalf of both this independent charity called the Alliance and an undisclosed developer. What kind of shell game is this? Taxpayers have a right to answers. If we can't get answers through the counties using proper legal channels, perhaps the only recourse is to get them in court through discovery. I respectfully ask Mr. Morant and Mr. Newton to recuse themselves from this vote, and that the council respect the needs of the community and vote to deny this application.
Andy Halleck.
Here to address this issue of the rents. Last month, Mr. Stacy was asked what the rents would be for the proposed Mercon site. Remember that? I do. He responded on behalf of his client, who's unknown, that the details had not been worked out. Fair enough. He said specifically, and I quote, "It's hard to spend the time to do that if you are not doing the project," unquote. These numbers exist. If they do not exist, Mr. Stacy's client is incompetent or worse. How can I make this claim? The answer is business experience. This proposal is a multi-million-dollar project. In planning the project, the developer has reviewed the rental market in the area. With this information, they have projected rents per unit this project will generate. As a result, they are then able to forecast potential profit. This work is supported generally through a spreadsheet the client uses to determine the viability of alternative projects, not just this one. Managing this risk this way of any new project is critical to the planning process. Now, I'm confident in saying all council members are sophisticated enough to know this. Where were the questions demanding real answers and not empty words? No one in business makes a multi-million-dollar financial decision without some plan showing a potential return. The answer to the rent question exists. You're being played. For this reason, you should vote no.
Amy Jones.
Good evening, council. I considered yielding my time, and then I considered it again because this issue is much too important. I apologize for the repetition, but this process is an important one, and understanding the needs of your community has got to get across. I'm Amy Jones, full-time resident of North Litchfield. I appreciate the opportunity to exercise what I consider my obligation to participate in the civic process. And I very much appreciate your willingness to hear all of us this evening. As frustrated as I and many of the citizens that you have already heard from are, we understand that the Mercom property owned by the Economic Alliance remains a financial liability with a loan from Santee Cooper for, according to Mr. Anderson, roughly half of the original $949,000 note. There are many factors to consider as this property is presented to council for a second time after being withdrawn last time. I don't envy your challenge of balancing the desire to satisfy debt and meet the needs of your community, but that is exactly the responsibility your constituents entrusted to you with their vote. Let's take a look at what has and hasn't changed since the first Mercom proposal. Although the developer hasn't been revealed publicly, as been stated tonight, these units are still being promoted under the auspices of affordable housing, and I don't think I need to beat that horse any farther. There's nothing about this project this time or last time that was affordable. Recent developers in the area, like Graycliff, are companies seeking to grow capital for their investors. Graycliff was the pursuant prior developer. They pursued the growth of this capital for their investors by building these developments and subsequently selling them off for profit, indicating that these projects are simply a means to an end with no regard whatsoever for anyone's housing crisis, let alone ours. What has changed? Well, an awful lot has changed. Let's start with the what and notably the where. In the surrounding neighborhoods that make up the historically significant Parkersville community, home to much of our shrinking African-American population. The what is the number of approvals by council and the planning commission of maximized density on approximately 25 acres of nearby land to build multifamily 3-bedroom units alongside several single-family homes. And this is simply the most recent approvals of 3 projects. It does not include the not-so-recent development in nearby Hammock Cove or Parkside. The collective effect of these approvals could be compared to a planned strategic neutralization of an area by the military, effectively dropping the bombs of incremental development and gentrification. This comparison isn't intended to be inflammatory, but rather to wake each of you up to the fact that these projects cannot be considered in the vacuum of debt and profit alone. I urge you, please listen to your community. We're consensus builders here. We want to be supportive, but this is not good for anybody. Please vote no. Thank you.
Donnie Ford.
Good evening. My name is Cedric Duncan. I am a resident of the Parkersville area. I am here to speak on behalf of my pastor, Pastor Johnny Ford, who also served as the president of the Parkersville Development Alliance. The following is Pastor Ford's statement to the council. He said, "Don't mistake my absence as my not being a staunch opposition of the proposal matter facing the council tonight. Once again, I want to say how disappointed I am with some of the council and the county administrators, staff, and neglected to thoroughly address all the concerns both by the many of citizens from Parkersville and the surrounding communities. The council may believe having a development in the heart of an African-American community of Parkersville is better than the past project that have literally the landscape. It may not be another recycling center or a dump, but this proposal, Temple of Greed, is another example of total disregard the concerns of those whose family have endured staggering plight of gentrification taking place. You may not be voting to bring another dump into the African American community, but approving this project is just another way of dumping unwarranted traffic issues, more flooding, more erosion, and still no affordable housing. Fortunately for us, our family know firsthand what to do when challenges of this magnitude comes our way. We look to the hills in which our help comes from. I ask for the majority to vote against this project. Thank you, Pastor Johnny Ford.
Lynn Ford.
Good evening, council members. It was with difficulty that I had to write this letter. I'm really sad and upset to see such a blatant disregard of community sentiment by this body. I realize that no matter what we, the people on the Waccamaw Neck, say, you're going to do what you're going to do because of your own economic interests, and that makes me truly sad. We can see that gentrification of Parkersville is alive and well in 2022. I was going to point out that the housing element of our comprehensive plan actually suggests a remedy to achieve affordable housing. But why should I? It is clear that this body is not interested in affordable housing. You're just paying lip service to the idea. We can clearly see that your mention of any type of affordable housing is simply to justify a zoning change. Any type of decision you make tonight, according to your history and voting habits, concerning African American communities in Parkersville and Pawleys Island will be to satisfy your own interests instead of the interests of the people that you are supposed to serve and represent. I am typically an upbeat and optimistic person, but you have given me nothing upon which to base my hope for a better remedy. Please prove me wrong and do what's right for the people of Parkersville. Thank you.
Cindy Person.
Good evening again. My name is Cindy Person, and I'm here this time representing adjoining landowners to this parcel, interested parties with standing, and the Parkersville community. The most important factor for you to consider this evening legally is that your planning commission voted 5-0 to deny the zoning change on the basis that it violated the comprehensive plan. And it does. Current zoning allows for no residential use, and the comprehensive plan allows for 0 residential density. You are being asked by this applicant to change zoning to allow not just residential use, but high-density residential use. Our comprehensive plan doesn't allow that. There are 3 parcels that make up this PD. You're being asked to amend the map to go from 0 to high density for this PD, which affects 3 landowners, when only 1 of the 3 landowners is the applicant. Even if this request didn't violate the comprehensive plan, you cannot amend a PD that involves 3 pieces of land and 3 landowners without the involvement of the other 2. That's called lack of due process. Section 720B of the Planning Code provides, quote, zoning regulations must be made in accordance with the comprehensive plan for the jurisdiction. We're not supposed to be changing our zoning ordinances to accommodate a developer's proposal that doesn't conform to our plan. That is backwards, exactly the opposite. In addition, the applicant has to prove a justification. I suspect this whole affordable housing scheme, which was nowhere to be found in the application itself, was created to look like justification, and you've heard all about that. There's no commitment, there's no numbers. And it's not like it's the only parcel of land in Georgetown County on which affordable housing could be built. It should be built on land that's already zoned for high-density residential. And the suggestion that the details can be ironed out behind the scenes in a development agreement after the zoning change is approved is absurd. First, we don't even know who the developer is. That should be red flag number one. Red flag number two is that the county isn't authorized to enter into development agreements for parcels of land under 25 acres. This is 14 acres. Plain and simple, as your planning commission recognized, this requested zoning change does not conform to the comp plan. There are numerous other legal defects. We're just asking you, for the sake of protecting this community, please deny this request. We don't want to bring a third lawsuit. That's not what we're about, but we will do that to protect this community. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, that's our final speaker.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Will you ask Mr. Carolina to come back in, please? We'll move down to appointments to boards and commissions. We have two appointments to Georgetown County Alcohol and Drug Abuse Commission. The first appointment is for Ms. Eleanor Clark to serve as position on that particular board. She has submitted her application to council, and I'm thinking you'll have had an opportunity to review that particular application, I should say. And thereby, I move that Eleanor Clark be approved for service on the Alcohol and Drug Abuse Commission for Georgetown County. Is there a second?
I'll second that.
It's been seconded by Councilman Goggins. Any discussion? All in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. And Councilman Goggins, I think you have an appointment to the Alcohol and Drug Abuse Commission also?
Yes, sir. I can find my notes here, excuse me.
8-2-3.
Thank you. Ms. Connie Kopperitz, who comes highly recommended to the council, has applied. She has a background in therapy and counseling, and her resume looked outstanding. I've not had the pleasure of meeting Ms. Kopperitz, but did receive several recommendations that she be approved, and her resume clearly qualifies her for this position. So I'd respectfully like to ask for her appointment be made.
Thank you. So motion by Councilman Goggins for appointment of Connie Kopperitz to the Alcohol and Drug Abuse Commission. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Second by Councilman Anderson. Any discussion? All in favor of the appointment, please raise your hand. Opposed? All right, motion carries. We move now down to the third reading of ordinances. Ordinance number 22-36, an amendment to the comprehensive plan, future land use map, to reclassify 14.45 acre parcel located on the west side of Pettigrew Drive across from its intersection with Commerce Drive, further identified as TMS number 04-0203-189-02-00, from commercial to high-density residential. And I understand, Mr. Carolina, you will be recusing?
Yes. Chairman and my colleagues, because of a continuing conflict of interest as it pertains to myself in the voting on the third reading of Ordinance 2236 and Ordinance 2237, identified as tax map number 04-0203-189-0200, I recuse myself from voting on these two actions. We've heard it all. Subject property not zoned for residential use. Current area is a nightmare regarding traffic, not only for Pettigrew, Waverly, and the cross thoroughfares, and also including Highway 17. Affordable housing and workplace housing, what does that mean? What's the rental or purchase price point for workforce housing? I believe it was mentioned of a 30% set aside. Who monitors that issue? Who will certify that the stormwater and drainage design will handle the needs of an ever-growing community? Our planning commission voted 5-0. Pardon me?
Didn't we make a statement?
All right. I recuse myself at this time. Thank you. Okay. Again, I recuse myself from this voting.
Ms. Richardson.
Yes, sir. And again, I will address items 10A and 10B together as they involve the same parcel 3 of this plan development that we've been discussing here tonight. I think we are all familiar with the background for this particular case, but I did want to hit on some changes and updates since second reading. For ordinance 22-37 that's in your packet, that's the rezoning ordinance. The language has been changed to reflect the percentage of below market rent units has been increased to 30%. And I do have one correction. The ordinance as it is right now reads for at least 7 years, and that should be changed to a 15-year commitment. For ordinance number 22-36, the acreage amount has been corrected to reflect 14.45 acres. I also wanted to mention that since second reading, we have received, and I believe they've been forwarded to you, letters from the other two landowners in the PD stating their neutral position on the proposed PD amendment, as well as the numerous amounts of correspondence that you received as well in opposition to this request from the residents. I'll be glad to address any questions you might have.
Thank you, Ms. Richardson. Any questions for Ms. Richardson?
Yes, I have one question that I think that you may be able to answer. This 90-unit multifamily, is this an apartment or is this townhouses?
I think they will be set up as townhomes, but they will be rental units, is my understanding.
What was the last part of that?
Rental, they will be rented
They will be rented.
as opposed to individual.
Well, let me, that's the reason I asked this question, is that as I explained, we did second reading. These units will be deeded to somebody. So I guess what that means is that every one of the 99 units will be deeded to whoever owns the development. I'm just trying to understand what we're doing here.
Mr. Stacy might need to address that as far as ownership. It was my understanding that the units would be rental units. They will be designed from a building code standpoint as townhome. Again, this is my understanding, to meet the single-family code each unit.
And again, I still ask the same question. I just would like to know if they are townhouses, and I'll say A and B. A is, how will they be deeded? Because they will have to be deeded separately, because each one of them is going to have a parcel of land, and they're going to have space between them. And B, what the question was, I know when we were looking at these other townhouse units, they were staggered. And the International Residential Building Code requires some kind of a staggering effect with the plot plans, floor plans. And I don't see that in this plan that I've got.
I would need to refer the first question to Mr. Stacy in terms of the ownership arrangement. I will answer your second question. The staggering requirement comes from the general residential zoning district, and that's what those other two recent developments that we dealt with. And that section of our zoning code does have a requirement for the staggering. This is a planned development, so that requirement would not apply unless you did insert it here. Now, if that is a residential code requirement, obviously that they would still need to do that, and that would be a part of the plan review at the building permit stage.
And on that subject, I think when I read it, it calls them multifamily units, townhouses, and they are single-family dwellings. And that's something else that I'm still going to be looking for a change on. So be aware of that.
Yes, sir.
Okay, yes, sir.
There'll be one owner for all the units, Mr. Anderson. There'll be one owner for all the units.
One owner for all the units. Okay, so there'll be 99 deeds with
90, not 90, not 99.
90, okay, 90, whatever the number is, 90, 99, whatever it is, they'll be deeded that way.
Yes, sir.
All right, just curious about that. Thank you, sir.
With all due respect to my colleague, if I may apply just a little bit of my own expertise, there's a difference in the use of the term townhouse in the zoning language versus the International Building Code. And in the International Building Code or the International Residential Code, a townhouse is defined as a unit in which the occupant owns the ground underneath. And that's, I don't think, what we're talking about here. We're not talking about the definition as is the case in the International Residential Code or the International Code. We're talking about the zoning ordinance. So in effect, what you mean, Holly, and I think what the applicant means, I don't want to put words in anybody's mouth, is it's simply a two-story rental unit. And there'll be one owner.
Excuse me, are you saying that there are two different distinct definitions for a townhouse, one from the IBC and one from something else?
What we probably need to do, we can enter into that during our point of discussion. When we get into our point of discussion.
That's fine, that's fine.
Right now, I just want to address questions to Ms. Richardson. If you have any questions for Ms. Richardson, so we can proceed on.
Okay, I concur with you on that, Mr. Councilman.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman. Thank you.
Any further questions for Ms. Richardson? Thank you, Ms. Richardson.
Yes, sir.
Before we move forward with the vote, there are several comments regarding a potential conflict of interest with two of our council members. We've had our attorney to take a look at that pretty closely, and I'll yield now to our counsel to see what finding you have made regarding a potential conflict of interest regarding counsel.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman, I did look into it. First, I would start with Georgetown County Ordinance. It defines a conflict as no member shall vote on any question where his or her private interest in the matter presents a conflict of interest according to South Carolina State Ethics Act. You go to the State Ethics Act, you'll find that at Article 8, Chapter 13, and then particularly in Section 700 to 775, it sets out several enumerated occurrences or situations that would present a conflict. None of those would arise in the situation with your service or Mr. Newton's service on the Alliance. The Alliance is a separate nonprofit entity, and it's comprised of both private and public sector members, each member being there to represent on behalf of whoever their respective party may be, whether it's the hospital, in your situation, the county. Further, if you go and look again at Article 8, Chapter 13, at the definitions there, says it defines economic interest. And it says economic interest means an interest distinct from that of the general public in a purchase, sale, lease, contract, option, or other transaction or arrangement involving property or services in which a public official, public member, or public employee may gain an economic benefit of $50 or more. The question would become whether you would have an economic benefit, but it goes on to say in Section B, this definition does not prohibit a public official, public member, or public employee from participating in, voting on, or influencing, or attempting to influence an official decision if the only economic interest or reasonably foreseeable benefit that may accrue to the public official, public member, or public employee is incidental to the public official, public members, or public employee's position for which accrues to the public official, public member, or public employee as a member of a profession, occupation, or large class to no greater extent than the economic interest or potential benefit could reasonably foreseen to accrue to all other members of the profession, occupation, or large class. In this case, with the alliance, neither of you, is my understanding, I guess the question would be put to you, would you stand to gain any personal economic interest beyond that would accrue to the general economic benefit of the county? The purpose of the alliance, as I understand it, being comprised of public and private sector members, is to advance the economic development and interests of Georgetown County. Your role there is on behalf of the county council and the county of Georgetown. So unless you have some economic interest beyond that would generally accrue as defined here, then there would be no conflict.
Thank you. Are there any questions from counsel or legal counsel? Okay.
I would like to simply ask counsel, has your opinion, Mr. Watson, changed regarding the precedence of the zoning ordinance versus the comprehensive plan?
No, it has not. And let me state one other thing. Let me go back to this original question of the conflict of interest. Ultimately, these questions would, if it continues, would be decided by the State Ethics Commission. However, there is a very similar situation regarding, I believe it was an airport commission and a member on the airport commission, very similar to what you would be here as members of the council on an alliance, an economic development group. Same question arose there, and they did not find a conflict. Now, again, and thank you for letting me add that. To your question, no, sir. My opinion has not changed on that. I looked at that. I've looked at the comprehensive plan. I've looked at the statutes and the ordinances. And by the way, I'll address this benchmark report that's been mentioned a few times in the surrounding counties. I took a look at that, and I called every one of my colleagues, my fellow county attorneys in the counties mentioned there. None of them were aware of this report. So I don't know who was spoken with at those counties, but none of my colleagues were aware of it. And when I asked them the questions that were presented on that report and their assessment, and we talked through the issue, they concurred with me as well in my assessment. And it didn't mean no good to try to hide the ball or anything. So we talked through all the issues that you were wrestling with, all the issues which I've had to look at as counsel on your behalf. They concur with my assessment. So no, sir, mine hasn't changed. And I've also sought opinions from my colleagues.
Thank you, Mr. Watson.
Thank you.
Well, Mr. Chairman, the attorney did make reference to you and Mr. Newton as to whether you have any financial gains from serving on the alliance. So what is the answer?
No, we do not receive any financial gain, and I'll let Mr. Newton speak for himself.
No, we receive no financial gains from serving on the Alliance Commission.
Mr. Chairman, if I may, because I can anticipate the thoughts probably. Not from serving, but would you gain have any financial gain from the sale of this by the Alliance?
No.
No.
Thank you.
Okay. We move on down to,
Mr. Chairman, can I say something here? I'm getting a little confused now. Is Ms. Richardson, is she finished with,
yeah, she's finished with her report.
okay, so we're open for discussion on this first ordinance now?
But the motion hasn't been made yet.
Okay, well, that's not, I'm trying to figure out where we are. Okay.
That's where we are.
Okay, thank you.
Sure. So is there a motion regarding ordinance number 22-36?
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion that we approve third reading of ordinance 32-26.
There's a motion for approval of ordinance number 22-36. Is there a second?
I second.
It's moved by Councilman Goggins, second by Councilman Newton. Can we get a motion to amend to incorporate the revised text as discussed by Ms. Richardson?
I make a motion, we amend the text as described by Ms. Richardson.
It was moved by Councilman Newton. Is there a second?
Second.
It is second by Councilor Johnson for the amendment. We'll go to the amended motion. All in favor of the amended, in the discussion.
Point of order. Are we going to have discussion?
On the main motion.
Okay.
This is the amended motion to incorporate the text.
Let me know when that is.
I'll let you know that. I'll let you know. Okay. 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 Okay, there's a motion and a second for the amendment. Any discussion regarding the amended motion? All in favor of the amended motion, please raise your hand.
No.
Oppose? You oppose the amended motion?
I said no.
Okay.
I oppose it.
Okay. Okay. I was going to call for all opposed.
That's fine.
Okay. All opposed to the amended motion? Please let the record reflect that Councilman Anderson opposed the amended motion. We'll now go back to the main motion. Any discussion? Now, Councilman Anderson.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, I'd just like to remind you all that, as I said, at second reading, this is a flawed ordinance because of the history moving from planned development, or from planned development, it should have been moved back to forest and agriculture, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. I'm not going to waste any more time on that, but I just wanted to remind you all of what I said and how you voted. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you. So there's a motion and there's a second motion to incorporate the revised text. All in favor of the motion, please raise your hand. Oppose?
No.
Okay. Please let the record reflect that there's 4-1, I'm sorry. 4-1 with Councilman Anderson opposing. We move down to ordinance number 22-37. Is there a motion regarding ordinance number 22-37?
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion, we approve ordinance number 22-37.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Is there a motion to amend ordinance number 22-37 to incorporate the revised text?
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion, we approve the motion to amend ordinance number 22-37 as written.
Okay. Is there a second for the amendment?
I second it.
Okay. We'll go with the amended motion first. Any discussion regarding the amended motion? All in favor of the amended motion, please raise your hand. Oppose? Please let the record reflect that Councilman Anderson oppose the amended motion? We now go back to the original motion. We wait until the crowd disperse.
Let's go ahead, Louis.
You go with it? Okay.
Let's go.
Okay, we'll go back to the original motion.
Go ahead.
All in favor?
Disrespectful.
No, any discussion regarding the original motion with the incorporated text?
I have some things I'd like to say. If you all would settle down for a minute, you might be interested in what I have to say here. You need to go ahead and say it. You need to go ahead and say it. That's your people. My people? Yeah. They're not our people? Okay, I will proceed to say what I have to say. To begin with, what I'm going to talk about has already pretty much been said, but I got an answer on the 90 units, and they are townhouses. Now, as far as stormwater, realizing that this development is located along a lowland watershed, I have a problem with the dwelling density because of the impact it will have on the ability of the land to absorb stormwater. A, the development will create too much impervious area. B, the 1.8 acre commercial parcel to be used as a restaurant and parking area will exacerbate the stormwater runoff problem. Then I've got a question about the bridge that maybe somebody could answer, and that is, will this bridge on the main street at the point it crosses the area through which the stormwater water flows, will that be a bridge there?
You're referring to the wetland crossing that's shown on the plan? Mr.
Yeah,
Anderson?
it's about halfway into the development. It's right at this point. That's what I'm thinking. Is that going to be a bridge through there, or a culvert, or what is it going to be?
It would either need to be a bridge or fill to allow for that crossing. I think that would depend on the permit that they're granted from OCRM. I do know that those are non-jurisdictional wetlands. They do have the wetlands determination that's been provided.
Okay. So that's kind of to be determined.
Yes, sir.
But it will take care of that flow, whatever it is. And then last, stormwater from the western boundary of the property should all be collected into the two retention ponds. I make those suggestions more for our stormwater people than anybody else, because I'm looking at this, and I make these points because of my firsthand experience with stormwater lawsuits, which the county is always dragged into. We are sued along with the owner of the property and the engineer. If the development goes forward, I will be watching what's going on with the stormwater very closely. If you read my editorial, you learned that my plan for this property was to create affordable housing development with between 26 and 28 single-family homes on lots from 1/2 acre down to 10,000 square feet. So my next question is about this affordable housing. It's still up in the air as to what it is. I think I might have caught drift of some portion of it, but I do have a specific question that Mr. Carolina and myself and Mr. Newton went through when we did the Wedgefield plantation. And in reading all the documentation for HUD and state affordable housing, all my question is this: is the money that's going to take care of the affordable housing portion of this, is this going to be public funds or is this going to be private funds? Can you tell me that?
There are no public dollars planned for this project. There are no public dollars planned for this project.
I'm sorry, say that again.
There are no public funds planned for this project.
Okay, it's all private funds.
Yes, sir.
Okay, thank you. All right, I'll go on then. I also mentioned at the time that the time has come for the citizens to know more about where the money comes from and how it's spent to operate the county. So I put a little white paper together on that, and it's called the County Population and Statistics and Budget Statistics for 2022. The population of Georgetown County is currently about 64,000 people. On the mainland, 4 districts of 9,000 people each for a total of 36,000, or 56% of the total population. On the Waccamaw Neck, 3 districts of 9,000 people each for a total of 28,000 people, or 44% of the population. Now, here's the important part. It's our budget. We've got a $100 million budget in Georgetown County. We're not a wealthy county compared to the county above us and the county below us. I think their budgets are somewhere around 300 million a year. And I think I stand to be corrected. It's 100. Ours is 100 million. But we certainly don't want to look like Horry or Charleston counties. So having said that, on the revenue side, we have 70 million in revenues coming from property taxes and other taxes and fees. This revenue is used for operation and maintenance of our county. That includes wages and salaries for county employees and materials. Materials include anything from pencils and papers to heavy equipment and diesel fuel. The remaining 30 million comes from mostly state and federal government sources. On the expenditure side, each district spends about $10 million a year on essential and non-essential services. Essential services include the Sheriff's Department, fire departments, EMS, public service, a judicial system, and others. On the non-essential services include parks and recreation, aging services, and other things along those lines. About 80%, or $56 million of this revenue comes from the Waccamaw Neck. Again, 56 million of the revenue comes from the Waccamaw Neck. 20%, or about 14 million of this revenue comes from the mainland.
Mr. Anderson,
Yes.
I would like for you to continue. There's a motion on the floor here. If you have some information you'd like to have a discussion with council about, I'll try to give you a lot of leeway there.
I'm sorry, but I'm going to finish this.
You can finish it, but there's a motion on the floor.
Okay, well, it's open for discussion, and this is part of my discussion.
But you're not discussing it with council. You're making a comment.
I'm discussing. I've got somewhere I'm going with all this.
Okay, yeah, why don't you discuss it with council, because this is a discussion period. So if you discuss it with council, then that is fine. If you're discussing with council, then that is fine.
Do what?
If you discuss, this is a period of discussion.
I am discussing. I'm making something clear to council that I'm making a point of, and I can get to that.
Okay, that's fine.
I was going to go through these expenditures, and I went through that, and so I will continue. That's the meat of the thing. Other than the fact that each of the 3 districts on the Waccamaw Neck bring in $18.7 million. Each of the 4 districts on the mainland bring in $3.5 million. This imbalance is the reason we need growth in residential, commercial, and industrial real estate on the mainland. Now, our budget is directly impacted by the U.S. Constitution. On the revenue side, the founding fathers were specific as to how money needed to run the government would be collected. Chronologically, A, by tariffs, a little later on with the whiskey tax, and finally by the 16th Amendment, the 1913 Income Tax Amendment. On the spending side, our Constitution is silent. It doesn't say anything about spending, but most states by law do require a balanced budget. My point in all of this is that we do have a balanced budget, but 80% of the load is carried by the citizens of the Waccamaw Neck. If the 4 districts on the mainland side of the county would balance their budget, that is, pay for what they spend, we would have an extra $26 million of revenue to spend on county services. The folks on the neck have been reaching out to you at every opportunity to address their fears of losing their quality of life by your inaction to update our zoning ordinances. I call this taxation without representation. Again, taxation without representation. We will be discussing this problem in the first quarter of next year when we begin the next year's budget cycle. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. We'll move forward with the motion. All in favor, please raise your hand. Opposed?
Opposed.
Please let the record reflect that Councilman Anderson opposed. Thank you. We ask Councilman Carolina to come back here. We move down to our first reading of ordinances. Ordinance number, and these ordinances will be read into the record only, by title only for first reading. Ordinance number 22-40, an amendment to Article 6, Section 626, Preservation Agriculture, to clarify minimum lot size requirement. Ordinance number 22-41, an amendment to Article 5, establishment of zoning districts and rules for the interpretation of district boundaries, Section 501, district boundaries of the zoning ordinance, to reference the county's digital maps as the official zoning map. Then ordinance number 22-42, an ordinance to update the 2018 International Building Codes. We move down to the approval of our minutes from our meeting on October 25th, 2022. Is there a motion for approval of those minutes?
So moved.
It's been moved by Councilman Anderson. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Councilman Newton. Any discussion? All in favor, please raise your hand. Opposed? Motion carries. Is there any further business to come before council this evening? If not, may I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
It's moved by Councilman Goggins for the adjournment. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Councilman Newton. Any discussion? All in favor, please raise your hand. Opposed? We now stand adjourned. Thank you.